Welcome to Make Your Own Fun. I am here with Carrie Anne Drazewski-Keller, and she is an anthropologist and co-host of the Crime Juicy Cocktail Hour podcast. Hopefully, I covered that, everything across the board. So, welcome to the show. You're looking fantastic, happy, healthy.
Thank you.
So I guess I will just start at the top here with what do you think the fascination, I would say, over the last few years with like true crime, that it's like podcasts popping up, TV shows, YouTube stuff. It's just the last 5 years, and especially during like lockdown, it's just like this groundswell of this stuff. What's your take on that?
I get that question a lot, and I think what's happening, nationwide in our country in particular, with a lot of crime, being publicized more, in the last, 20, 30 years, that, to watch a show and, have the case explained is a safe space to
Mhm.
participate within the subject matter. It makes it easier for people to be in that world. And I think it's very interesting how huge it is. I mean, it really got big. My fascination with it began with Ted Bundy. His court case was pretty much the one that kind of started, the court case stuff. He was the first real publicized, court case. And it was just, people have never seen anything like it before. We didn't have that, and it was just amazing. And he's representing himself, and there's teeth involved. And it was just people couldn't believe it.
Oh yeah, that was a circus.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you this, since you do so much of this stuff on your show, and then I'm sure you watch, shows and movies and things in your own life. Does it bother you when you come across cases or mysteries that are open-ended, that there's no resolution? Does that just irritate you on some level?
Yeah, there's several of them that have bothered me. The Mesa murders down in New Mexico,
Mhm.
things like that, that we're starting to, they're getting some headway on it. But yeah, some of these mysteries are very, frustrating.
I guess that's the whole, what do you call it? The whole cold case element, which, for me being like a parent, it's like the whole like abduction stuff is just like, oh, it's heartbreaking to hear about some of those cases and those instances where like people were never found. And it was like, your heart goes out, because on some level you're like, well, I guess no, finding no body means no death, but there's just that no resolution. Like people can't find the closure, and it's just aggravating, and stuff goes on for years and years. And I think that, for a lot of people too, like they find resolution years later. What was the guy's name that did the it was not Unsolved Mysteries, it was another show, was God, like his son was kidnapped or something.
Well, America's Most Wanted.
Right. And so, he kind of started his own kind of crusade. So good things can come out of horrible situations, I guess. So, all right. So you're in Colorado, right?
Mhm.
What is like uniquely a Colorado genre? Would you say like the Western is like the most prevalent kind of like entertainment and writing genre based out of Colorado? Like, I don't know if you grew up there or. Um,
I did not. No,
okay.
I chose Colorado. I love it here. Yeah, the writing styles here. I'm in the Colorado writing and publishers community, and kind of keep my eye on that. And everybody writes everything here. It seems like it's a very big, diverse population. I've met horror writers, rock art, specialists. I mean, just everybody's here in Colorado now. It's fantastic.
That's cool. I mean, I guess, I'm not originally from California. I'm originally from Ohio, but there are certain tropes and things for California with, surfers and, Joshua Tree and people being in the desert and, the mountains and rock climbing. So I always have this kind of like romanticized view of Colorado as being, mountains, wide open spaces, people bitching about the snow. Because when I lived in Ohio, it was just like, one day I'm gonna get the fuck out of here, this snow. And then it's like I'm in California now over, on and off for 20 years. And now I'm like, well, I could use a change of seasons. It's pretty boring.
Mhm.
So I guess, do you have a favorite kind of writing or writing style that you're drawn to?
Um, so I grew up reading a lot of fantasy, horror, sci-fi.
Okay.
So I would have to say sci-fi would be my favorite entertainment genre. For
Okay.
my particular tastes, I got into crime because of Dr. Al Carlisle, who is a serial killer expert. I started helping him with his, getting his stuff put together, and, kind of like a writing, coach, assistant, kind of helper, and tossing stuff back and forth. And that's how I kind of got involved back in the day in my 20s. Didn't realize what I was getting into. Um, yeah, and it just kind of snowballed from there. But because I always had, like the horror, you know, kind of base, and, all that since a child, I've always been a reader. It was really easy for me, oops, to do that. And, cataloging everything, documenting everything. I love all that stuff, accessioning. It's really fun to see what you've got and what you can make out of it.
Cool. Would you say your interest in true crime has made you pay more attention to details in your everyday life?
Yes.
like almost to like an annoying degree, like you're in line at a store and all of a sudden your eyebrow goes up and you're just noticing that person in your periphery on their phone, and then maybe somebody applying lipstick, and then somebody like not really reading a tabloid but holding it up. It's
I've
just
seen some I've seen some things that I've observed. As an anthropologist, they want you to kind of evaluate without, evaluating, just looking, observing without evaluating. So I kind of try to practice that. But being with Doc, the psychologist, he's like, no, 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 you need to you need to keep your eye on that guy. Okay. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, trying to, allow the observations to take place. But then again, you've got to be careful.
no, that's true. That's true. Has anything that you've noticed um, kind of turned a corner or led to something where it's like maybe your imagination was overreacting and then something did actually come from it? Like, are you paying attention to a situation?
Oh, that's happened a lot in my
Oh,
life.
really?
Oh, yeah. It seems like for me anyway. You
Any
hope
examples?
for the best, you hope for the best, you hope it's not right, and you're right.
Any examples or?
Um, I've got a lot of my stuff right now is under NDA because it's technically an IP now. So I've got to really watch
Okay.
what I release. But, there's just been like, there's cases that are going on all over where, you just can't put your finger on what happened. And when it comes out, it's just amazing. Some of the forensics that we're able to do now is incredible. What I have learned, not to change the subject on crime, but, with the police work, what fascinated me was I didn't realize until looking at some of these cases that were going on with people who, wanted to be police, 20, 30 years ago. A lot of the precincts didn't want you to have an IQ above a certain range, which was 108.
Wow.
And
Okay.
yeah, and some of them were told they failed the test. When they got 125 on the test, they passed the test. They just failed because they didn't get below that number. And the reason for that is because, well, someone with a lower IQ is easier to tell them what to do. A lot of people don't know that. It's all over the internet. When you start looking, there's lawsuits that have been happening for years over this, and it's not fair. We need people in our law enforcement community that feel safe and feel empowered with people around them that can be themselves. They don't have to always just, it's not just what's going on in the crime community. It's also what's going on with the police, the detectives, the FBI, everything. It's all encompassing. It's a fascinating world when you start looking at it from the big picture part of it. Just wonderful.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess I hadn't really put that together, that the lower IQ, the more inclusive you want to feel, as a safety net in terms of following a chain of command. So that makes sense. So do you find that you're more hypercritical of clues in treasure hunt movies too?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I love treasure hunting things. I think that's probably one of the main reasons why I really wanted to choose anthropology, quite frankly, just to learn, all of that there. And I did get a lot of information that I needed for treasure hunting. Colorado has some fun stuff. You remember Fenn's treasure?
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing. It was, just, I love that stuff too.
But I think also, like, on a certain level, you're more inclined to call bullshit on certain things. Like, my daughter and I we found out there's going to be a TV show based on National Treasure. So we're like, well, let's go watch the movies again or whatever. We started watching those, and there was a couple times, I was like, really, like, Masons and like founding fathers, like, really, like, I know it's a movie, but you're like, this is a lot of fucking work that these, like, supposed founding fathers would have had to do, and you're just like, triptychs and codexes, and you're like, really? But I guess that's kind of the fun, is like, oh, well, we just never considered, these hidden messages, and these, you have to use a cipher and figure out the clues and certain letters and things like that. But I guess it's not any more, incredulous than like Indiana Jones or anything like that. So, but I mean, that's kind of part of the fun. You just kind of get caught up and swept up in the adventure. So, I mean, have you yourself actually gone on any? Well, let's start with the treasure hunt kind of things. Have you, there's stuff in Colorado with all the mines and everything. So there were, even when I was a kid, there was a rumor about treasure being buried in closed down mines in Colorado and things like that.
Yeah, I like to keep track of a lot of those stories. I'm right by the old Spanish Trail. It's just down the way, walking along that, you can find all kinds of artifacts just right off the trail. I've kept my eye on some of the gold stuff around here. I just like to keep track of that. There's some things in areas that you can access. I have some friends that do gold panning, dry panning, wet panning, the whole 9 yards, and it's fun to keep track of that. Back to your thing on National Treasure, with the Masons, I am fascinated by cryptanalysis. I am. To me, I know National Treasure was kind of a, whatever, but, and Nicolas Cage, some people can take him or leave him. I like him.
Good actor.
But yeah, they did have to, you know, encrypt a lot of information back in the day, because that's the only way to keep it safe. Everybody read your stuff. People get bored and open your letter, and when they're trying to deliver it and read your thing. So you really had to. And, with what Fenn did with his treasure, it was kind of a cryptic type of thing that he did. Unwittingly, I don't know if he did it on purpose, but it did confuse where everything was for a long time, and it was fascinating. I liked how he did that. There's just so many stories here to go into, locations of caches in Colorado, on the Colorado Plateau in particular. The Four Corners area is my area that I love. It's got everything here. So
I've
yeah.
been there. I've been there. I've been to the Four Corners, and it's just like, you feel like the choosy tourist, but you're just like, I'm in this state. I'm in this state. I'm in this state. And then people that are local are just like, they done yet? Can we lock this up?
Yeah.
But yeah, just, I remember growing up and hearing all the stuff in the southeastern states and stuff about pirate treasure and stuff like that. And in your mind as a kid, you just think that these people live these like glorious long lives and this and that and all the books and stories that are written. Then you start watching some documentaries and you're just like, well, wait a minute, most of these guys didn't live to see 40, and they did not have ready access to fruits and vegetables, and scurvy was prevalent, and teeth falling out, and died horrible deaths. But the thing is that like golden age of piracy and everything was just a couple of years. It was like 10, 15 years in the early like 1700s, and it was over. And Hollywood would have you think it lasted like 100 years and all this stuff. But
And there was a lot more rules to piracy because, yes, we did have, people approving it, queens approving it, kings approving it so that they can, get some more plunder for their countries as well.
mhm.
And so, yeah, it didn't last as long as people really think. So I don't think there's as much pirate treasure out there as people want, of course.
No, there never is, unfortunately. But
Mhm.
there's still the Templar treasure. There's all that stuff. Um, I don't know. I mean, it just goes back to even bigger, fish of like Atlantis. And like, some people think Atlantis is like the half of Crete that fell into the ocean. Some people think it's southern part of Spain. Some people think it's like the Canary Islands and everything. Some people think it happened like thousands and thousands of years ago before the tectonic plates shifted, and Antarctica was like kind of a jungle and everything. But I just
I
maintain.
like that. I like the African theory.
Oh,
That,
okay. Yeah.
where the eye of the Sahara is.
Yeah.
I like that one.
That's because it used to be underwater. But the thing that I maintain is, I don't know, who's to say it wasn't more like Greece, where before there was an Athens, it was just little city states and stuff. And who's to say it wouldn't just be spread out all over the Mediterranean? Because I think after like Rome, we have this idea there had to be like a big giant metropolis capital city or something. But who's to say Atlantis was one city?
See, and I like that. That's a nice thought
Or
because
they definitely didn't call themselves Atlanteans.
I'm sure they didn't. I'm sure they didn't. Um, yeah, I mean, the civilization had to be spread out. I mean, that's a good point. It wouldn't have just been one town,
And
you
they would
know.
have traded and talked to other people. I mean, look how far like Greek culture, certainly like Egyptian culture, and I mean, I'm of an age where it's really sad, but when I was a kid, they were still teaching 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue, that he was the first European to come to this area. But even before that, we already knew that there were like Viking settlements in Canada, that they had land hopped all the way across. And it's just sometimes you just got to wonder if information is suppressed because it would unravel so much. I don't know.
Information is depressed. It is depressed. It is suppressed. I've seen a lot of, I mean, we've got a word, we redact everything. I recently learned that about 75 to 80% of all of our classified information is basically stuff we don't need, that the reason why we have to keep it is because it was collected incorrectly.
Or stuff is just put in a vault and released after all the principal players have passed on, like the Warren Commission or anything. And it's like that was released into the public. And people, I remember when all the information about the Kennedy assassination came out, people were like, and then they read it, and then it was just like crickets. People were like, eh. Well, it's like, well, what do you think, you were going to hold people accountable? They're all dead.
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
Yeah.
Everybody involved that knew anything about anything, gone. So it's just like but you would think the younger generations would be like, oh man, keys to unlock history and what was behind and cover up and everything, and nothing. It was like it was announced that it came out and then nothing. No one
Mhm.
cared.
Mhm. Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
people, it depends on what groups you're into. I mean, the mainstream media doesn't like a lot of history, a lot of, archaeology. I mean, they sprinkle it in, but a lot of the in-depth on the major stuff just does not happen. I mean, you're going to get it, wherever. I mean, you watch this History Channel now, and what is it, Duck Dynasty or something? I don't even
well,
know.
for years and years, and this has been a thing that's been going on since I don't know when, but anytime any major cultural event happens, there's what I call the bait and switch waka waka honk honk, which is like, this is getting really serious over here in Ukraine with Russia, and we're not really sure what's going to happen with Belarus and Poland. And it's like, and our next story is this hot young couple in Hollywood. Like, are they Splitsville? Like, tune in next. And it's like, wait, what about yeah, but look over here.
Makes you feel bipolar. It makes you feel unsettled. I mean, it's just that switch is so I hate it. I mean, I think that's why a lot of people are not watching the news, is because it takes you from depression to anxiety to I'm supposed to feel, envy for these people or whatever they want me to, whatever hole they want me to have today.
Well, it's almost like you have, and I've joked about this like during the election and stuff, but um, you really, to get totally unbiased news about America, you almost have to watch the BBC, where it's literally just a dude, straightforward, tie, jacket, literally not reading, prompter, just reading copy. And
I
it's
want
milk
Walter
toast,
Cronkite.
boring,
I want
but
him back. Where's Walter Cronkite when you need him? Let's dig him up. Let's get his DNA out here.
right? Like, talking about a guy, like, right, like talking about a guy who cried like on camera when they landed on the moon, versus now it's like we're gonna probably go back to the moon and put a base there and go to Mars, and I'm sure Elon Musk fucking Tesla will be waiting there for him. But I mean,
We'll put Kim Kardashian's ass on the flag.
like
It's gonna be great.
like like who's Pete Davidson banging now? Stay tuned. Like, well, we uncovered this temple that unlocks like 50,000 years of human history. Yes, and that's the new tattoo that Pete Davidson's getting, and you're like, who cares? So I wanted to touch on your podcast here, and thank you so much for sending me that info, because I'm like, why can I find it? Because I'm so much more of a visual person, so I don't, listen to podcasts like when I'm driving or things like that. But I should get into all that. But the one I really was drawn to was the Stay Squatchy. I love that episode. I mean, I dabbled in a couple of the other episodes, but like the necrophilia, I was like, yeah, I just ate. Maybe I'll come back to that one. It's just, I don't want to just be forced to like listen to it with like a bottle of Pepto-Bismol right there by the table. Like, I'll follow up with that. So, what are some of your favorite like mystical creatures? Like, do you think that there's, I mean, I listened to the episode, but like you personally, do you think there's, with our shrinking world, that there's still like room for that?
I do. Cryptids, basically we have cryptids that are found to be animals after the fact, like, the platypus. People thought that was a cryptid and found out it was. My personal theory, or what could work, I shouldn't say it's a whatever, but for Bigfoot, Sasquatch, you've heard the alien theory. You've heard, the interdimensional creature person, there's a lot of different theories, but I think it's quite possible anthropologically that there's a community of people that can hide themselves because we haven't found their bodies. There's societies that eat their dead.
Right. Yeah, there's actually a Michael Crichton book Eaters of the Dead, where I believe they were basically cavemen, and they had their whole society kind of underground in the caves, and then they would just come out at night and get the animals and the fruit and stuff, and then go back, and then their territory was just encroached on by like the Viking culture, and then they just started warring with each other, and eventually they were killed off because they just couldn't be out in the daylight, and they didn't know how to adapt, and end of the ice age and all that stuff. But who's to say? There are caves, there are underground lakes, there are sinkholes. We don't
Mhm.
know what's 5 miles below the surface. There's a lot of earth we've never explored. I
It's
mean,
true.
I'm always like amazed when I see the documentaries on deep sea marine life, and it blows your mind. You think you're watching science fiction. You're like, oh my God.
And there's some things that we just, haven't discovered yet that are going to be coming out. And, I think that it's possible. I'm my personal opinion is I don't think there's a real Bigfoot or a Yeti still. I would like one. I would like one, but I haven't seen enough evidence. What they have gotten recently, though, is I believe an island in Indonesia. They have found at least 6 ethnographers, a lot of stories about a hobbit.
I believe that short,
And
you know,
yeah, that could
or it's
happen.
hereditary. It could also be malnourishment, their territory being encroached upon. I think that the idea of like a Chewbacca or Harry and the Hendersons looking like 8 foot guy with, that may be all staged with, plaster, caster, footprints and people wearing, because the costumes you can make now, even you don't have to be on a Hollywood film production. You could be just a couple of guys with money that are out there, and that's like their weekend gig is to fuck with people.
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
I mean, one of the things we were talking, or that you talked about in your podcast, was just like the logging companies, and you're talking about guys that are using like heavy equipment, low, like high altitude, they're exhausted. They're working like double shifts. They're using like intense power tools. Their bodies are aching, and all it would take would be just somebody in a furry costume to stand like 300 yards away and just, you know, poke their head out from behind a tree, and they're like, "Wait, did I see it? Nah." And then somebody throws throws a rock. Oh, I got hit with a rock. Now it's real.
It could happen. It could be staged pretty quickly. It could happen very easily. Yeah.
But I mean, like Asian cultures with the idea of dragons, um, what would you think if you were a person that had never seen a crocodile before, and it just came out of the woods and walked into your yard? You would be like, you know or the same thing with dinosaurs, and dinosaurs becoming like birds. If you think about an ostrich, it's basically a velociraptor without teeth, because if you look at the claws, it could an ostrich can kill you, and you don't want
Hmm.
to fuck with those. Like even in
Oh
the
yeah.
zoo when I was a kid, I was like, eh.
You knew. You knew.
Yeah, it's like instinctively, So, I mean, it's also like with Antarctica. I mean, we're gonna eventually crack that ice, or if the ice shelf, whatever, floats out into the ocean. We're gonna find stuff that maybe we don't really want to find. We find like these perfectly preserved, like woolly mammoths. We find these perfectly preserved, cavemen and women. But the thing that's making me scratch my head is like they're carbon dating these people, if you want to call them people, older, farther and farther and farther back. Yet they're not like these people wearing like saber-tooth tiger pelts or something. They're wearing clothes and hats and boots and using tools that look like really developed. And then wait a minute, these are like predating like the pyramids. Like what the hell? So that just goes with like the right back to what you were talking about with the information kind of being covered up. I mean,
And quite frankly, a lot of people aren't interested. I mean,
It's the
it's
whack-a-whack in
shocking.
Hong Kong.
It's
Squirrel.
shocking, but I think should be, viral, a viral story nobody cares about. I mean, you can't even get, one person to be interested in it when you're like, wait a second, this was a groundbreaking event. It's, society today is so fractured with the niches that we have now that unless you know what niche goes where and who would be interested, you have to target your audience. You have to know where they're at. And it's hard to find them sometimes. Sometimes the audience is very small that would be interested in your stuff. But if you can find it and get just a few people to back you, maybe that's when we're going to have some more movement on some of these, mysterious stories that need to come out. That's what I've been seeing on some things anyway. And it has been happening, but boy, I still can't believe some of the stories that have not gone anywhere.
I mean, to quote everybody's favorite fictional paranormal FBI agent, Fox Mulder, if your story cannot be categorized or easily referenced, then you are quickly pushed over the cliff into Crackpotville, because you got to have photographic and DNA proof of anything. If you don't, people are like so easily dismissive, just like, yeah, let me get back to my cartoons.
Yeah, but if you do have documentation, they won't look at it.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I mean, you think about all the Air Force bases and things like that, where being from Ohio, I knew about Wright-Patterson, and then everything moved to Area 51, and now they're saying even that's been shut down and moved to another. I mean, I hear about Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado, so I'm sure you've heard stories about that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, it's hard to keep track of. You're right. The information that does come out is probably skewed. It's cherry picked and edited to death to try to get people.
We're so numb. We're so numb when like a little thing pokes it, like a little gopher of a story pokes its head out, that we're like, I've heard that a million times, but it's like they whatever are betting on that it's just, information and technology gets released at such a fast pace now that the little kids, to them it's like no big deal. But and I've even written like a short story about it, like, if you were to go back to the 1950s with a cell phone, you would be a god, as long as you could keep it charged. And I don't know if you'd even would have the internet. I don't know, but I mean, and then the joke is always like, this miracle device, what do you use it for? Yeah, well, look at this cat juggling a ball for hours and hours, and they're like, really?
That's what you're going to do with all the power in the world?
That's what we do. That's how they placate. So let me turn a corner and get back into the podcast stuff here. So what do you think? Let's touch on serial killers here for a minute. What do you think is one of the, I mean, do you have any theories about serial killers who leave clues that want to get caught?
Yeah. I think what happens is, you see when they start to spiral, we'll use Bundy as an example with the 12-year-old girl. He, before that, he wouldn't have touched her, I don't think, before he got to that spiraling event. I don't think the girl, to me, didn't look older than 12. Maybe to hurt him she did, and maybe some people kind of are like, well, he mistook her for someone older. I don't buy that. I think she looked 10, 8, but anyway, that was really stupid of him to do. And when the last 2 kills that he did before her at the sorority houses, he used the same log. I mean, the nerve, that's weird. I mean, why would you do that? So I think when you're coming out of being a psychopath, and I believe, there's a line of psychopaths, 1 to 10, is probably the basic. And everybody's on the scale. Let's be honest. I mean, it's just how it is. But when you get into sociopathy is when you kind of start, that's when I believe you're spinning out of control, when you can't really, control your emotions, control what you're doing. And that is where that happens. When you get to that point, and you slip up and you do it on, I don't know if they're doing it on purpose. Yes, it's subconsciously on purpose, but
or they're just tired
they
of it
might
and they
not just
just don't want to do it anymore, but they're just compelled, like an urge, like a primal urge, and then they just want to live like a normal life. And then, I mean, one example that I always come back to is the Zodiac killer, because I hate to use the phrase that it was a phase that this person went through, but at a certain point they just didn't have the urge, or they aged out of it, or were too worried about they
there you
lose
were.
stuff.
There's the word, age out. I believe that happens a lot more than people understand, because killing is a lot of work.
And covering up,
Before,
yeah.
after, during, the whole thing, the after time takes hours, days, weeks, months, sometimes years to handle, what you got to get rid of. So if you don't have your brain together enough to keep up with that, if you're drinking, if you're spiraling out of control, you're doing drugs, whatever, and all of these things, you just want to quit it all, it's not going to stop until you get caught. You can't. You'll get somebody will piss you off, somebody will hurt your feelings, someone will be mean, somebody will be whatever, and you'll need to release that pressure or whatever it is that you do when you do kill. And that's what that's about.
I mean, I know that's one of the theories about the Zodiac, is that he got to be 40, 50 years old, and then just the testosterone levels go down, and everything else in your body changes, and you're tired more often. Stamina, everything changes after, especially after 40. So it's like, well, did he just, like I said, age out of it? I don't know if it's just a thing where he was like, if I don't stop this now, like I will be shot dead or something. If I don't completely disengage, move to another town, assume another identity, work at a hardware store, lawn and garden, whatever, this is the end of me. And maybe, the person sees the light, or whatever you want to call it, where it's like, I do want to live. I do value life. So I don't know.
Was it the Golden Gate Killer was that the guy's name, the Golden Gate Killer? And they found his DNA on coffee mug, coffee cup.
I think so.
He said that his granddaughter, when he had his first granddaughter, is what made him stop. Or woke him up. He wanted to be around for her. I don't know if that's BS. I think it was a combination of aging out, having a grandkid he wants to stay around for, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just it's crazy though that some of these people that they just at a certain point, like I don't know if Dahmer wanted to get caught. Jeffrey Dahmer, I don't know if he really wanted, like, was a cry for help or anything. I don't know. I mean, it's like he was just on his path. I don't know if
He
he
was
would have
doing his thing. Yeah, he definitely was just doing his thing. His story's so amazing.
It's just like, I just, to disassociate with reality and to mutilate people in that way and abuse corpses. It's like, I don't know. I mean, and I don't know if he would have aged out of it or whatever. I don't know if it's just a neurosis thing. It's impossible to say, but I do agree with a lot of people that it's a lot harder to hide in plain sight now versus like 70s, 80s, not even in the 90s. Last 20 years with the internet, everybody's got the access, the camera. Something looks suspicious, they can just zoom in, record it, show it to somebody, but it still happens.
Yeah, and I think we do have a drop in it though, quite dramatically. The heyday of serial killing was not the 70s as people think. It's actually in the 80s is when we had the highest numbers per population.
Hmm.
I have had some arguments thrown at me that some people are just getting better at hiding. If you have a lot of money, you can get away with it. There's people that say if you had the right connections money wise, you could do things now that you couldn't back in the day.
Right. And that's what they say about Jack the Ripper too, that he had major connections to either royalty or the wealthy in London, and that's how he was kind of able to kind of come and go freely. But that's another one where it's like we might never know.
Yeah, I do hope we find out who Jack the Ripper was one day. That would be fascinating. I had a professor one day that said, you know, you've got your phone there, but one day you're going to be able to use your phone to point it at that hearth, you know, and find out it was 1400 years ago when the last time it was fired. That's what we're going to be able to have one day.
Oh, I
So
believe it.
yeah, I'm hoping that that will happen. I'm not sure exactly how much evidence they have left. I'm sure they have some.
Well, I mean, you know, I've been to Arizona, and that's where they moved the London Bridge. So it's like, what of London of that era is left in London? I don't know. I mean, that's one of those we might never know because the world has kind of moved on, and those buildings and structures and people and clothes, they don't really exist anymore. But well, I guess one last big topic I kind of wanted to pick your brain over. We kind of touched on this a little bit. Is what are some of your favorite conspiracy theories?
Oh, geez, that's huge.
Are you having like a lamp like right in your face? Is that why you got the glasses on?
Oh, I'm legally blind.
Oh my God, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. I can see okay. It's just I'm light blinds me.
Okay,
So, but I have to have light to see.
conundrum.
So it's one of those, you know, yeah. So that kind of kicked in. It's my eyes, I have what is called keratoconus. It's brought on by what is called Ehlers-Danlos, which I just found out I had like 4 years ago. It's double jointedness. So like I can bend
Holy
everywhere,
cow.
everywhere, all over.
Oh my gosh.
And that's my whole body. So I finally found that out, and it's the collagen that's kind of pulling everything apart. And I'm now being able to work with it. I'm going to have to do a whole thing on, you know, how I've kind of put myself back together after not knowing that. There's a, let's get back to conspiracy theories. My thing on conspiracy theories, you know, the FBI coined the term, and it was utilized for them so that they could, I think, debunk things, you know, that kind of stuff. The conspiracy theories today that fascinate me, not because I believe so much in them about what it is, but every conspiracy theory has a grain of truth. So QAnon, for example, you know, they believe in the child pedophilia and the Pizzagate and all that kind of stuff, drinking blood. And there is something to it. Back in the day when the gladiators got done with their battles, they were thrown outside the Colosseum, and people would take their bread and dip it in their blood and eat it. And they said they got high, they got a rush. Now, the blood does have, it's going to have adrenaline in it. It's going to have
Right.
the death stuff that was dumped right before they died. We have people saying in England, the flayed man, we've got the flayed man all over there, and people would drink that blood. So we've got Mayans also that we know chopped people's head off and had the abacus of skulls and drank heart blood. I mean, so there's something to it. They say being terrified makes the blood even more, you know, juicy, more.
Well, if you believe
Whatever.
Pennywise the clown, yeah.
Yeah. And so there is something to it. Is it a conspiracy theory that, you know, people are doing that right now with QAnon and all that stuff? I don't know. There's not enough documentation and evidence. What I don't like is that they only focus on certain groups, that's who's doing it. when it's not. If you guys are going to be really real in your theory, you have a whole group of people that are doing that. It's not the Republicans saying the Democrats are the pedophiles. Okay. It's, or vice versa. It's the whole thing. It's every level of society, poor, rich. And, that's what I don't like about a lot of the conspiracy theories is they're politicized. They're used to point fingers at people and not taken apart in the correct way so that we can really analyze this. If you have something, if there's a kid getting hurt, damn it, we want to know about it. Don't make it a conspiracy theory or don't make it whatever so that it can't be analyzed correctly. That's another thing that I think that's going on politically wise with these conspiracy theories that I hate. It really drives me nuts. And honestly, because what if there is someone getting hurt and nobody gives a shit because you've got this dumb idea?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I mean, going back to what we talked about earlier, I mean, do you think that, under the Freedom of Information Act, we should be having access to all this stuff? So let's say that one conspiracy theory is that we got, alien technology with the Roswell crash in 1947, but we've been eking out a little bit of that technology, but it's just kind of crazy that technology is sped up so fast just since the 90s.
Correct.
Just since
And
the
it is
90s.
fascinating. Yeah.
Because I mean, with the advent of the internet and everything being streaming, and it's kind of scary in a way because more than ever, we're becoming human gerbils. Like that's kind of like the pandemic, I feel like or the lockdown was the final push into like, oh, well, you already are getting your entertainment and your communication streamed into your home. You don't need a landline phone anymore. And you're there now. Oh, and you're working from home now and you have your food. You can get your food delivered to your house with Amazon Fresh or whatever, or fast food, however you want to. And it's like you don't really need to go anywhere. Your kids can be doing learning in the other room on a laptop. It's like, why do they want us to stay at home? Why do they want us to become like these amorphous blobs with headphones and not even so much typing anymore? It's with the mouse or a touchscreen, point and click. Like, why are they trying to turn people into cattle?
It's easier to keep track of you. I know what's up your sleeve. I have subjugated you. I can do what I want. I can make you stay home. You're not gonna like it maybe all the time, but what else are you gonna do? There are definitely some things that are being, I don't know if it was planned or anything like that. I really don't believe that. I think it's just the natural progression of what has happened. People are overwhelmed with the amount of entertainment that is out there, Disneyland, clubs, travel. I mean, there's so many things that we can do now and that are available that, our parents didn't do. They didn't go travel to Europe. They didn't, very rarely did we hear about people doing that kind of stuff. So now you're expected to, and they want you to, have the marketing of having a hole. If you have a hole, I can fill it. Right. So I need you to have that. And a lot of it is, gosh, this is such a huge subject. Actually, the subjugation thing I was really thinking about the other day, because you quit having public executions once a population is subjugated enough.
Right.
And we haven't had that for a long time. I mean, when was the last public in the United States? I can't recall.
I don't remember. Yeah.
So we are there. We do know we're subjugated, and this pandemic did make me feel I got brainwashed, in a lot of ways. Looking at other people, I saw other people getting brainwashed, and I saw people not care. I've been trained on biohazards. I know how to not get infected, and I didn't get infected. So, I mean, it just feels like this disconnect that we have. I don't believe all the big players up at the top are communicating like people think, because I know how people are. They don't. They
Well,
just
just think
don't.
about the government agencies. They don't talk to each other. It's
No.
supposed to be like three branches of government, and it's just like, even with the advent of email, it's like, come on, let's get those documents in PDF form and send them the hell over. And they're like, oh, sorry, it's like a 3-month turnaround with the internet. Like, come on, man.
And we've got a lot of information that we're losing. A lot of people don't understand that. I've walked down hallways in government buildings with garbage bags of stuff shredded. Like, what's this? Oh, we're digitizing everything. We're putting it on discs. The gold discs that we have are 20 to 5 years to 50 years rated that we are putting stuff on. I saw a big, huge, beautiful map, spring map, that they scanned and destroyed. And that should have been in a museum.
Oh,
It was beautiful. And that kind of thing is happening all over this country. We are collecting the most data of our lives, and most of it's worthless, or going to be quite quickly, because our storage capacity is just not there. Like our federal repositories for artifacts, we need, like, I don't know how many more of those, 10 of them, 20, as many as we can get. There's just stuff sitting that needs to be cataloged and accessioned and put away. We don't have room.
right. It's just like social media. Social media, pretty much in the last 15 years, has just been used to collect consumer information
Mm-hmm.
and your voting habits and your sleeping habits, your eating habits, all that stuff. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, well, that'll help the corporations, mainly like pharmaceutical companies,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't help humanity
No.
at all. It just helps companies. I mean, I guess Zuckerberg answers to somebody at a certain level, but how hilarious. I don't remember when that was, like a couple of years ago, when he had that committee that he had to sit in front of, and the people were like 30 years older than him, and they were asking him like the most asinine, useless questions, like, is that like the Twitter? And then he was like, no, it's different than, it's not just text based, it's, images and this and that. Oh, my daughter loves the Twitter. And it's like, you don't realize, well, people in power don't realize that he really just came in and just took over.
Yeah, and they don't get it, and they're so far behind on bills and everything. It's that part's really scary, because if technology came out tomorrow that needed to be regulated, we're all like, hey, everybody on the planet thinks this needs to be regulated. To get that pushed through, I don't know if it could happen. Whatever we needed to do to protect people, I don't know if we have that capacity anymore.
No, I mean, I think that Facebook has been around for 15 years, and we don't think about a life without it now, because we had it so much. And then everything is connected, and you can link everything to Instagram, and my God, TikTok has taken over now, and all this other stuff. And it's just like, in a way, I like having a phone. I like having it on me and being able to call somebody or text them on short notice and this and that. But I do yearn, and it makes me sound like an old man. I do yearn for, thinking about calling somebody and then having to get home and then maybe leave a message on their answering machine. And it's like looking forward. I mean, I remember being a kid and you didn't know what some of your friends did over the weekend until you had lunch with them at school on Monday. And it was exciting because it was like, oh, did you see this movie? Or did you guys watch this game? Or did you go to this party or whatever? And, having that information while it's happening sent to you is become so ho-hum. And I mean, I've done it too, but oh God, social media shouldn't be used for like, look at this Cobb salad I'm eating at Applebee's. Isn't it amazing? Like, well, dude, not really.
I had an ex-sister-in-law that time we went anywhere, she had to take a picture of her meal. I'm just like, oh my goodness. I mean, if it was like really beautiful food, I will. Because I mean,
if you're going to like a 4-star restaurant, or like some of the way that they put together like a dish at like I don't know, a Cheesecake Factory, where you're like, oh, I wouldn't do that at home. And it's
right.
Like, wow, this is great, maybe a picture, but get like the people with you in the picture of like, and you're holding up the plate and there's 4 people
Some
there
interest. Yeah, you can get interest.
like, look at these carrot sticks. How about I don't? Pass. I'm sure it probably, if it doesn't taste like a carrot, fucking call me.
Right, right.
Then I'm concerned. If you're eating a carrot and it tastes like a fucking banana, call me. Because that's what's
Then we're
hilarious.
interested. Then we need to know.
Well,
Then
because
we're
that's what's
inquiring.
hilarious with the cross pollination of all the food and everything. You're like, well, does it have to be strawberry banana? Like, why is it strawberry banana, but it looks like a strawberry? And it's just like all the the restaurants and fast food places used to be a burger place or a chicken place or a Chinese food place or whatever, and then it's like everybody sells everything now. There's a
Yeah, and
Greek
I don't like
restaurant, but
that.
we've got French fries and we've got burgers and we've got pie.
And we've got euros now, and we've got this, and we've got tacos too.
I know. I remember like when I was really little, people thought it was a travesty that McDonald's sold chicken. And now it's like people probably get their kids chicken McNuggets more than they eat the burgers. So, and then they have salads and all this other stuff. So it's just the way of the world. It's like always shocking, and then we get used to it.
Yeah, I forgot about the chicken. I remember that now. People were pissed
Or then when
until
they
they could.
changed the containers to like cardboard from the styrofoam, people were like, "I'm never gonna eat fast food at Wendy's or whatever again." And then a week later, like, "I want Wendy's."
Wendy's
All
is
right,
great. Wendy's is the
so
best burger in my opinion, actually.
so we've got a few minutes here to wrap it up. Anything else you want to talk about? We could cover your social media. Maybe you've got some upcoming episodes you want to plug for the podcast.
Yeah, last night we released, like you said, the necrophilia may be a little bit much. We had quite a few requests for that. We kind of held it off. We've got an interview with Dr. Mark Hewitt, who's actually a zodiologist specialist and Unabomber specialist. He is also on Charles Manson.
Wow.
Wrote a book about a guy who with a guy who was in prison with him, and it was very fascinating, just the day-to-day interaction with Charles Manson, what he was like. That's coming up. We've done a story on the Amazon review killer that was fun. We've got some quite a big things in Crime Juicy coming up. My social media, I also have a page called How to Love Your Little Monster for a book that I've been trying to write for 10 years. I changed it, went back, pulled it from a publisher, and that's got quite a big following, that page, just with my bullshit. And of course, Instagram. I'm not a Twitter. I've never been a Twitter fan. I feel like you're sticking your head in a river and coming up
I
with
got
trying
rid of
to
mine when all
catch
the
a
witch
fish.
hunt stuff started a few years ago. I was like, I don't remember what I said 15 years ago. I don't need the drama. I got rid of it.
Yeah, Twitter's always been a difficult one for me anyway. I just was like, I don't get it. I'm doing some TikTok. It's fun. Not a big deal. I just usually put up whatever I'm going to put up anyway, somewhere else. So I'm not doing really specific videos for that yet, but I have seen some pretty interesting stuff on there now that I didn't think would work, but it's working, some really cute, biofeedback groups. There's some interesting stuff out there. I'm the Facebook thing. I'm really concerned still about Facebook and their power. I've been banned on Facebook, I don't know how many damn times. And I know it's because someone else reports you. Okay. Everybody thinks, oh, it's Facebook. No, someone else reported you. And if you can find the person who's reporting you, which I finally did, and it stops, you can't believe somebody stalked you that long and kept reporting you, but it happens to people. And I couldn't believe it. So that was interesting. And it wasn't just me. It happens to a lot of people, the left and the right thing on Facebook has been hell. I've seen things that were completely racist and turned it in, and it stays up. And then you see stuff that other people put up that you're like, what, why some things get through and others don't. Blatantly a joke taken as a violent threat. I've seen that with people, but it was a joke, I think they need to have a huge overhaul on all kinds of things. And I think it should be done by a bunch of anthropologists. I think a bunch of anthropologists should overhaul the police departments all over the country, all over the world. It's anthropology to me is my religion. When I
Mhm.
finally got my degree and finally sat down and was able to meditate on what I finally figured out about human nature and the world and the jungle we're in, it changed my life. I was less depressed, less anxious, knowing the truth. Sometimes you can become more anxious and depressed than knowing the truth, but it's been a wonderful journey trying to discover what we are, and not just from a psychological and analysis or a biological analysis, but as a cultural analysis, because we are group hive people. We just always have been, always will be. They don't we don't talk about it, how much another person can influence your thinking. We are that way. We will follow people no matter what, because, oh, they must know what they're talking about if everybody's following them. We're fascinating units,
It's a
humans.
herd mentality. But yeah, I just wanted to thank you so much for being on the show. It's been so insightful. I knew it would be.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, I'm a fan of the podcast, and I wish you guys nothing but the best. You've got a great thing going on there. So I
Thank
guess
you.
with that, I'll just say enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thanks, Eric.
Uh,
Appreciate you having me on the show. Thank you.
no problem. Bye now.